I've been in a coma for the last 6 months. I was fortunate, they say. The semi-truck that hit my car killed my mother and my fiancé, but spared me. Well, not spared, I guess. I had 2 broken legs and a shattered collarbone, and I was in a persistent vegetative state for 6 months, 3 weeks, and 2 days. I awoke on April 26, 2021. I couldn't heed the call, and that's why I'm the last Josh. The news is still coming in from across the world as people kept finding bodies. The occurrence had been as sudden as it was unexplainable. The death toll is estimated to be nearly 1 million, all from different states, different countries, different walks of life. It's being called one of the most devastating events of the 20th century, and the level of cover-up going on to keep the public outcry to a minimum is alarming. They're trying to say that it's nothing but a meme, an internet joke, a fun fight that happened with pool noodles and foam swords. The truth is that on April 24th, for some reason, everyone named Josh just kind of snapped. I didn't know this at first, of course. When I woke up, the hospital staff was just glad I had woken up. The doctor had been hopeful, but every coma's different. I was the subject of a lot of attention for the first few hours as they told me what happened and tried to get in touch with any family I might have in the area. My dad died when I was little. My grandparents on both sides have been dead for years, and I have no other siblings. I was alone, no family or future family since my fiancé was dead, and I was having a lot of trouble processing it. That was the first time I heard about the Josh battle. One of the techs was taking my vitals and he mentioned it offhandedly. "Shame you were in a coma, kid. You missed the big Josh fight." I blinked a little confused. I'm sorry? "The Josh fight. It's a whole thing. Look," he elaborated. He pulled out his phone and showed me a bunch of happy, smiling people fighting with foam weapons and pool noodles and other padded things. They seemed to be having a great time, and it stuck with me long after the tech took his phone and continued his rounds. Why would they call it a Josh fight? It appeared to be some silly thing that had happened suddenly, but I couldn't do any research on my own. My phone had been destroyed in the accident, and with no immediate family to talk to, I was in the dark until the next day. That was when Brown arrived. I'd woken up from a nap and found a dark-haired man sitting in my hospital room. He wore thick black glasses, had short brown hair, and wore a close-cropped beard that looked patchy. He smiled when he saw me, putting his phone in his pocket and giving me his full attention. "Good, you're awake. I've been waiting for you to wake up. Are you with billing or something? I have insurance if that's what you're—" He waved me off. No, nothing like that. "My name's Brown. I'm here to inform you that you are one of the last Joshes on Earth." I raised an eyebrow. Is that some kind of joke? There are millions of Joshes on Earth. How the hell can I be one of the last? Well, it's a long story, and no one's quite sure why this thing happened at all. What we do know is that 2 days ago, all the people named Josh suffered from an unexplainable psychotic break that seems to have struck them all at once. It lasted for 24 hours, and when it was done, they all returned to normal with no memories of what they had done. If that's true, then why am I still in this hospital bed? I was pretty sure he was just some crackpot who had wandered in, but I was just bored enough to entertain his crazy ideas. "Well, you may not have gone anywhere, but the nurses tell me that you tried. You apparently bucked around in your bed and had to be restrained until the end of the day. At midnight, you stopped convulsing, and when morning came, you were still unmoving, and they released you from your restraints. 2 days later, you woke up. Does this have anything to do with this Josh fight people keep talking about?" He made a rude noise. "That's bullcrap. It was all staged to make people doubt. In a few days, when people start reporting the missing, and work records show that people have missed a week of work, they'll start putting the pieces together. Here," he said, putting down a brown satchel at the foot of my bed, "you can use this to see the facts we've compiled after I've gone. I have a feeling it will help you accept the facts as we see them." He got up then, pushing his chair back up against the wall and saying he'd see me tomorrow. "Watch the videos. Let me know what you think. I'll be back for your thoughts later." And with that, he was gone. The videos were in a folder on the desktop. They were time-stamped, each of them ordered by when the incident took place. I put my mouse over the first, occurring at 8:15 that morning, and clicked play on the video. What popped up was a rip of a Facebook Live video. It was clearly shot from a cell phone, and the shaky cam was a little disorienting. It showed 2 people, one filming and one hovering just outside of camera view, as they followed a tall farm boy through the halls of the school. He was strong looking, his corn silk hair swinging around his shoulders, and he looked more than a little confused as he blundered along. Alright, so this guy came blundering out of his class, almost hit my friend with the door, and now he's just walking up the halls. His teacher was freaking out for a minute, but he just kept walking. We thought he might be looking for something, so we followed him to see what was going on. The big farm boy walked through the halls, like a trapped animal fleeing prey. His head snapped furtively right and left at every intersection, and he seemed driven to find something. The boys laughed as they followed him, thinking it was a joke or some kind of prank. He had cut down 3 more halls before he found what he was looking for, and the two oohed and hooted when the farm boy locked eyes with a smaller boy in a button-down shirt at the end of the hall. The 2 boys commented about the big farm boy having found his boyfriend, but to me, they looked like gunslingers getting ready to draw. When the smaller boy charged the bigger one, it took the farm boy completely by surprise. When his nose popped, as the smaller boy jumped and headbutted him, the other 2 stopped laughing. The 2 fought, punching and kicking, as the larger one quickly gained the advantage. His hands found their way around the smaller boy's throat, as the doors to the classroom started opening. The students rushed out to see what the commotion was. Suddenly, another boy punched a bigger one in the back of the head. Then another boy jumped into the fray. Suddenly, others were piling in, and the teachers and administrators were trying to separate them. When an adult dived into one of the other teachers as he tried to separate the combatants, his thumbs found the boy's eyes and pressed them into his skull, the screaming taking on a different level. Students were running, people were screaming, and the blood started to run down the struggling boy's face. The camera was knocked from the recorder's hand, and the video stopped suddenly. The next video was from 8:30, and it seemed to be from a traffic cam. Cars drove beneath the light, taking turns and waiting for their chance to cross. Suddenly, a car T-boned another car, and the drivers climbed out and began punching and kicking indiscriminately. One of them slammed the other's hand in the car door, pinning him, and as the man writhed, the other punched him until his blood flew across the side of the vehicle. Then he took his head and put it through the passenger side window, raking his throat across the glass as the blood sheeted down like a waterfall. After he was done, the man ran off down the street and out of camera view. I furrowed my eyebrows. What the hell was I watching? What did this video have to do with anything? Brown had collected a bunch of videos from fights. Big deal. What did any of this have to do with the supposed Josh fight? The stuff I had seen online was the fun kind of fighting. These videos were brutal. I got my answer in video 6. The next 3 videos were more traffic cam footage. A man in a hard hat suddenly landed on a man on the sidewalk, punching him even as he died from the fall. It appeared he had jumped right from the building they were constructing, but it was hard to tell for sure. The next was a pair of men suddenly running into camera view and slugging it out. One of them pulled out a knife and slit the other one's throat, but he continued to try to strangle him until he finally died in a pool of his own blood. The 5th was another vehicular crash. One of the drivers pulled the other driver out of the car, but it appeared he had died on impact. He left him on the street and ran off somewhere, just as the video ended. The weirdest part was, all 5 of these videos had happened at different times and in different places. 3 of the videos had clearly taken place in the United States, but one of them looked like it might be from Asia, and the last one had decidedly been in Europe, given the driving patterns. It was the weirdest thing. Why had he given me these videos? What was the point? As the 6th video started, I saw it was another cell phone cam. A man in a mall was drowning a child in a fountain. The scene looked vaguely Middle Eastern, and the people around them weren't speaking any language I understood. A woman was beating at the man's shoulder, trying to stop him, but she just kept repeating the same name again and again and again as she pounded weakly at the man. It was the only word I could understand, and the familiarity chilled me a little bit. Joshua, 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 Joshua. Have you ever been in a crowded place and heard someone calling your name? They aren't talking to you, but the sound of your name turns you to see who it is. Maybe it's even someone you know. Maybe it's someone you know who's being called. On a baser level, it's a desire to see someone else that has your name. We want to see who else has our name and, for a few seconds, feel a sense of brotherhood with them. You're 2 people amongst many, and such things make us feel strange, maybe a sense of togetherness as well. Hearing my name called as she begged him to stop drowning what could have very well been his own son made me feel a shared sense of horror. Horror that my own namesake could do such a thing. Horror that I might be capable of something like that. Video 7 was body cam footage of someone named Officer Grigg. Officer Grigg was running through a maze of small concrete corridors, talking to someone on the radio and begging for help. His partner had gone crazy. His partner had killed a kid, and now he was chasing him. Other officers were on the way, but Officer Grigg had heard shots from the complex up ahead. He was terrified that his partner had killed someone else. He came into the courtyard and froze, hugging the wall as he drew his gun. When he peeked around, I could see that the courtyard had 6 bodies sprawled out around the corner. They'd been killed as they tried to charge him, and as Officer Grigg peeked, he saw another crazy man running at the cornered officer. He shot him, his head exploding in a puff of red, and he fell down with the others in a twitching mass. Grigg stepped up then, training his gun on his partner as he approached slowly. "Mulder, just put it down, man. We can talk about this. We can..." Mulder turned to look at him, his eyes glazed and unseeing, just before his head snapped to the side and he fell against the wall. Grigg spun and fired without looking, and the last image I saw was another officer sliding down the wall, his eyes far away and his expression slack. The camera zoomed in on the dead officer's nameplate, and I read J. Myers. The next few videos were much like the others. Street fights, car accidents that turned violent, shaky videos that caught random acts of violence, and throughout all of them, people sometimes screamed Josh or Joshua. I wasn't sure how many I had watched, but the end result was always the same: murder, death, pain. I looked at the videos in that folder and felt sick. There were so many of them. I had watched less than 1/10 of them. There could be 10,000 on this laptop. How many of them would be like the ones I had seen before? Just random acts of violence that were not so random in the end. How many Joshes had really died that day because something in their heads told them to? I exited out of the folder, and that's when I saw a second folder that I had missed on first inspection. J. Holder was in the subject line in all caps. When I opened the folder, there were 7 videos inside. The first was at 8:30, and it looked like it might be another security cam video. The other 5 videos happened between 9:50 and midnight, with the 7th being around 5 a.m. I was hesitant to begin these videos, but there was something intriguing about them. Why had they been separated? Who was this guy? Joshua Holder, I assumed. I opened the first video and found footage from a convenience store CCTV. A blond man in a black t-shirt was standing in line, waiting his turn. He was fidgeting, the old lady in line taking longer than she strictly needed to, and I could see him sigh as he tapped his foot. He had some snacks and a drink in his hand, and it looked like any other day in any other town. Then, and I had to rewind the video a few times to catch it, his eyes glazed over, and the snacks fell out of his hand. The owner must have yelled at him, because he looked up and made eye contact as the woman at the counter turned to look at him. Then, he rushed the counter, vaulted over it, and was lost to view as the woman screamed wordlessly and ran from the store. 5 minutes later, he left. His fists were bleeding, and his face looked to be dripping with something. The second video was at 9:50. It was short, less than a minute. A car was stopped at a light, waiting for the green light, when Holder approached the vehicle. He reached in, slammed the driver's face against the steering wheel, and dragged them from the car. Putting his head under the tire, he then proceeds to climb behind the wheel and drive away. The red smear on the concrete told me everything I needed to know. The third video was another body cam shot at 10:40. An officer identifies himself as Officer Felder and tells us that he's approaching the car for a routine traffic stop. As he comes up to the window, I saw Holder's face staring blankly back at him. Officer Felder begins his rehearsed line, but suddenly tapers off as he reaches for his gun. Holder pulls a gun from beside the door as the officer is fumbling with the strap and shoots him 6 times. As he falls, we see Holder dragging him back into his squad car, leaving the stolen vehicle behind. At 11:20, I got my next video of Holder. The next video is a security camera, seeing a police officer gunning down people in a courtyard. The video is familiar, though, and when I saw an officer peek around the corner, I realized it was the same one that I'd been watching earlier. It was Officer Grigg, as he tried to subdue his partner, but I was seeing it from a different angle. As Grigg approached, gun out but speaking soothingly, I could see Holder stepping out from another alley and leveling a pistol. He was wearing a uniform he had likely stolen from a cop, and after he shot, he stepped back out of sight. The other officer ran in then, and Griggs put him down without thinking. The next video, the fifth, was another CCTV video. A man in a uniform was walking through a crowded mall. People were running, screaming soundlessly as he gunned them down. Each shot was precise, each kill was clean, and only men seemed to fall at his hands. The footage whipped through a couple of different cameras, and the officer was deadly as he proceeded. In all, I watched him kill 7 men before he approached the door to the food court, flashing lights visible beyond. That was 4 p.m. by the timestamp. The next video was at 10, and it was news footage of Holder surrendering. He was getting on his knees, dressed in a blood-stained uniform, and police were taking him into custody. The news anchor was saying how Jeffrey Holder was responsible for the deaths of 15 people and had led police on a murder spree that had been capped off with his murder of 7 people at the Bayview Mall. Police did not believe he had any accomplices and were just glad to have the situation under control. But wait, I rewound the video as the name clicked. Jeffrey Holder, not Joshua Holder? Something didn't add up. I opened the last video, waving away an orderly with a dinner tray as I realized it was 7 at night. These videos had engrossed me for hours. I was sickened by them, shocked by them, but they had drugged me in and made me watch. These were my people dying, and I was reveling in the new sort of shared camaraderie. I was mourning for them as they fell. I was horrified for them as they succumbed to their baser instincts, and I was dreading what depravity might come next. Then there was this Jeffrey Holder, the worst of them all. I loaded up the last video and saw another security camera video of Holder in an interrogation cell. He was sitting at a long white table, hands cuffed to a metal ring, fidgeting as he had been in the convenience store. He was testing his restraints, checking his exits, and when the doors opened, a detective walked in to question him. The questions were expected. Why did you kill these people? What are your motives? Why did you do this? On and on and on. He sat there through it all in silence. Then the detective made a grave mistake. He leaned in close, wanting to ask Holder something quietly so the camera would have trouble hearing it. When Holder sank his teeth into his nose, he looked extremely surprised. When Holder had finished mutilating him, a scene that was very Silence of the Lambs, he maneuvered himself around and snaked the detective's key. A few short minutes later, and he was heading out the door that the detective had come in through. The camera continued to record the room as the detective's blood pooled there. When Brown came back the next day, I had moved 5 more videos into the Holder file. "You've been busy," he commented when I showed him. What happened after he escaped?" I asked, not sure I wanted to know, but needing to know. He made his way down to lockup with the detective's ID, killed a guard, and shot 7 men that were being held for violent crimes they'd committed that day. I'm pretty sure you can guess what their names were. He just kept killing, even after the rest snapped out of it. By the end of the 24 hours, there were very few left to snap out of it. The ones who fought and won snapped back at midnight. I remember coming to in a parking garage with blood on my hands and a knife in my pocket. I ran home, showered, and spent the rest of the day wondering what the hell had happened. Those who were unable to kill others, incarcerated or committed individuals, took their own lives in a fit of rage. The ones who were in a coma or were unable to take their own lives are all that's left. The final total is something like 5,000 Joshes worldwide. Why has no one noticed? I asked, astonished. Someone has, because they've been using the media to cover it up. They've been spreading false information in order to make people think it's a joke, a meme. But when people start noticing that their loved ones haven't come home, it'll be a little harder to sweep under the rug. Before he left, I asked him one more question. He had let me keep the laptop, telling me to observe the videos and see if I could find any more Holder sightings, which led me to my last question. I had seen him escape. I knew we had killed once, but I didn't know why. Why would he snap like that? He isn't a Josh. Also, why kill us? Brown shrugged. Who knows? All we know is that no one has seen him since the incident, and we're pretty interested in finding out where he is and what he's been up to. That was a week ago. Brown stopped returning my emails 2 days ago, and that's worrisome. The group he belongs to, a group of Joshes on Reddit, have been monitoring some things. They've noticed more Josh-related deaths since the incident. Someone is killing them. Someone is tracking us down, and I fear that Brown may be their latest victim. The message I got in my email yesterday was pretty clear about that. I will finish what I started, it said. It was signed, J. Holder.
You're still here. I thought you might be. Thanks for joining me for tonight's story. If your insatiable appetite for horror knows no bounds, might I suggest one of our playlists, or one of our previous stories in the archive? There should be one appearing at the end of the story any minute now. And of course, if you're not subscribed, why not go ahead and hit that subscribe button? Maybe hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of the spooky things that we do here. If you prefer your horror a little more analog, you can always pick up one of my books. There's a link below to my latest, and it'll take you to all the great things that I've posted on Amazon. For my book lovers in the audience, I always suggest coming on down to Patreon so you can become part of my ghostly reader tier and get a book anytime I write one, which is usually about twice a year. Speaking of my patrons, let's go ahead and thank them, shall we? Thanks to Unicorn Hollow for being our spooky ghost contributor. Thanks to Janet for being our spooky skeleton tier contributor. And thanks to Hi Stacy, Winter, Xaronan, Emily Coltsfoot, Stephanie Carrington, Marianne Schuler, Tyler Parker, and Jennifer Damron for being our ghostly reader tier contributors. Thanks, everyone. We just couldn't do the show without you. If you think you might like to support the show in a more monetary fashion, come on down to Patreon. I have many tiers. I think you'll find one that'll suit you best. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.